Hey.
Howdy.
Hey.
This is Dream Idiots. My name is Morris, and the fellow over there hemming and hawing is Brian. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing all right. It's been a while since we talked. We haven't recorded in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So we are coming in here for the last episode of the month of June, episode 153. And you can find out everything you need to find out about us at dreamidiots.com. You can check out our old episodes. You can check out merch. You can check out a whole bunch of stuff. So go to that website if you are indeed interested. Anything
Well
to add to
said.
that, Brian?
Yeah, check it out. Give us a review. Drop us a line if you want. You can send us an email, Dream Idiots Podcast. There actually is a shiny new contact us form on the website. And giving us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to us on. It would be great as well. And we appreciate you hanging in there with us.
And speaking of hanging in, Brian, I told you as we got started that I've been in the car for 7 hours today, so I'm a little out of it. I'm still in that kind of uh anyway. Did you know that
and
there's a
and your
place
and your
in
and your, and your butt's a bit numb. Yeah, but
did you know that there's a place called Brown Canyon in Colorado?
is that's a literal place? That's not a euphemism? Okay. I did
No,
not
it's
know
not. I think I would
that.
change that. Anyway,
Brown Canyon.
Brown Canyon. Yes. I saw it on the way to our destination. Brian, you get to go first because it's episode 153. So,
All right.
all you.
And we're off. So we are talking about baseball for
Woo!
a moment before we sort of switch over to the main crux of my story. So
Oh,
it's the tail end of 1977.
okay.
And the Dodgers are on the cusp of setting a pretty cool record. The games are mostly meaningless for them at this time of year because the Dodgers had already clinched the postseason, but there is still a little drama left. They might become the first team to have 4 players each finishing the season with 30 home runs. Reggie Smith is already there. He's joined by Steve Garvey and Ron Say, and Dusty Baker is stuck at 29. They have a final home series against the Astros, and Dusty fails to homer in the Friday game, fails to homer again in the Saturday game, and so they're heading into the last game of the regular season, October 2nd, 1977. But we're going to come back to that.
Okay. That was
Glenn,
that was back when the Astros were in the National League many, many years ago.
not that long ago,
I know.
they only changed. When did they change? 10 years
I don't
ago?
know.
8 years ago?
I don't know.
Yeah, so they're in the same division now with the Rangers, and it's
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah.
So, Glenn Burke was born in Oakland, California on November 16th, 1952. He was one of 8 children born to
Okay.
a single mom. He's a bit of a class clown and loved to make his friends laugh. His family went to church a lot, but he was a stellar athlete. He was sort of, pretty much known as the best athlete in his community, and he could play anything, but baseball was his main thing. I hated those athletes that could just, definitely take over any sport and instantly be the best one at it. When he's 15 years old, he already weighs 180 pounds and he's 5 foot 10. And
Holy
happily,
cow.
in his area, baseball leagues are pretty well organized and have their stuff together. So he joins a team. At some point in his first year or two playing as a teenager, he allegedly hit one home run 500 feet, which would be a home run,
Holy shit.
which would be a home run in pretty much any park in the world. So
And that's
I don't.
still with wooden bats, right?
That still wooden bats,
Oh my God.
right? Yeah. So 19. Yes, late 60s somewhere. So Glenn's father wasn't a complete absentee, but he was just mostly gone. He would visit now and again, and would routinely pick on Glenn. When you have a child that's growing up to be a very large man, perhaps being the bully seems like a poor decision. Glenn's dad wanted to toughen him up or something, but it's clear that it really didn't work. Glenn was known to be sensitive, emotional, and friendly, and would remain that way. Glenn was on both the high school basketball and baseball teams and was named Basketball Player of the Year for Northern California in 1970.
Wow.
A couple different scholarships come his way for college, and he accepts one at the University of Denver,
Woo.
the Fighting Snowflakes, or whatever they are.
The
Uh,
Pioneers.
the Pioneers, that's right.
Pioneers. Yeah.
So he goes to Denver, but he's only there for a couple of months because he hates the weather. And it's too damn cold, and he goes back to Oakland, where it's
It's
nice
not that
and
cold.
warm. Yeah, no, it's compared to Oakland. I mean, Oakland's not cold, but whatever. So he's doesn't like the snow. So growing up near San Francisco, he is a huge Giants fan and naturally hates the Dodgers, like all good-hearted, decent human beings should. He's probably slightly confused when the Dodgers came calling one day, and they wanted him to sign a minor league contract with them. And first, he said,
Uh-oh.
"No, no, I'm not." You must be joking. I'm not playing for you. But then they go and talk to his mother, and his mom says, "Yeah, Glenn, sign this contract, and you're gonna go play for the you're gonna go play for the Dodgers. He gets a $5,000 signing bonus to play in the minor league system for the Dodgers." So this is now 71, 72, somewhere in there. Glenn is
Hmm.
putting 100% of his effort into playing baseball, and he's not really doing anything else. He's not dating anyone, men or women. He seems to kind of be completely asexual. At this point, he is approximately 6'3" and weighs 220 pounds. Big, big dude.
Okay. Well built gentleman.
Yeah, all right.
Did he
So,
play his minor league ball with San Antonio, or were
nope.
they the missions were not affiliated? They weren't the San Antonio
No,
Dodgers
no,
yet. Okay.
no, no.
All right.
Well, at least I don't think so. So he starts out playing in fabulous Ogden, Utah, known for their racial diversity.
I've been there.
Yeah. I mean, so he might have been the only black man in the entire state in 1971. I don't know. And he would routinely have problems getting served in restaurants because we'd go in and sit there and they would ignore him because,
Hmm.
racism. But then they'd find that he was a ball player, and so somehow being a ball player made it acceptable, I guess. And he apparently loved just stiffing wait staff
Jesus.
if they're being shitty to him, leave mere pennies in the way of a tip. But he's a big dude and he's an athlete, so he's going in there and having have the T-bone steak and the mashed potato and the side salad and the fried shrimp and a nice big piece. I mean, he have a huge meal probably,
Hmm.
and would leave just an awful tip. So. He also, well, in Utah had at least one delightful exchange with a Mormon who was trying to convert him. And when Glenn said, "Yeah, no, I'm not, get away from me," the guy said to him, "Well, that's fine because blacks are the root cause of all of our problems in modern society. Like just a moment ago, you were trying to convert me, and now that I'm telling you I want no part of you, you're being racist. Oh, great, good for you."
Yeah.
So he's bouncing around and he's climbing the ranks of the minor leagues, and he reconnects at some point with a guy named Marvin Webb. So Marvin's a friend from high school, also a baseball player. They're close friends in the kind of the Dodgers universe, and they wind up living together. And Marvin is this smooth dude. He is out there. He's trying to score women all the time. He's trying to score women for Glenn, and Glenn's response to coming home and finding Marvin with women in their apartment is he just runs away. He just flees. I have to go. You go somewhere else. He has no interest in dealing with these women that Marvin's trying to score for him at all. Glenn does eventually. He's back in the Oakland area, reconnects with a former teacher of his, and so as a 20-year-old, probably maybe only 19, has sex for the first time, and finally now it's clicking for Glenn that he's gay. Kind of has that realization, and then Marvin finally figures out that Glenn's gay too. But it's clear that Marvin, is still in his corner, considers him a close friend. He's going to probably, stop trying to score women for him. But Marvin doesn't care. They're still
Hmm.
close friends, and they still live together. Glenn's doing well in the Dodgers, organization, but the organization itself is not treating him all that well. Years later, the Dodgers would claim, basically as an organization, that they had no idea that Glenn was gay. So if that's true, I guess they're being shitty to him because he's black, which is also peculiar because
Which is weird for the Dodgers.
uh,
Yeah.
but at the time they nowadays there is quite a bit of commentary on the fact that the diversity of Major League Baseball has changed quite a bit and the number of black players has dropped quite a bit. But at this point in time, the Dodgers have a number of black players, so I'm not
Hmm.
exactly sure. So on one occasion, At one point, he's playing in Spokane. He's also in Connecticut at one point, Waterbury. At one point, Glenn was told not to steal a base, not to steal second, but he does it he does it anyway. And he's called safe. When he goes back to the dugout, the manager tells him that if you do it again when I tell you not to steal, I'm going to bench you. And Glenn's response is, if you bench me, I'm going to kick your ass. So he's friendly and he's funny and he likes people to laugh, but he's emotional, he's volatile, and he'll happily threaten you, I guess, if he really really wants to. And he begins to have a bit of a reputation for being an enforcer, and so no one really questions his masculinity. There are a number of bench clearing brawls where someone on the opposing team winds up having a broken jaw that people attribute to Glenn. He didn't do it, but he must have been the one that did that. So he has good cover, but he knows in order to have a good career in baseball, he sort of has to stay in the closet, which is probably incredibly common in the 70s and early 80s. So he finally gets the call up and joins the Dodgers. And he's basically being touted as the next Willie Mays. Basically has
Mhm.
Willie Mays form in his body. Quickly forms good friendships with Dusty Baker and Davey Lopez. But
I remember him.
yeah, but he's a rookie. He spends most of his time on the bench. He's kind of the fourth outfielder. But he very quickly earns a reputation for being sort of the life of the team. He's a prankster and he's having fun. So we're going back to October 2nd, 1977. On this day when Dusty is trying to reach this record, Glenn is in the on deck circle when Dusty Baker comes back up to bat in the sixth inning. That would wind up being Dusty's final at bat for the season. And Dusty basically cranks one over the center field wall and does get homer number 30.
All right.
In his excitement and exuberance, Glenn is already out on the on deck circle, holds his hand way up over his head. Dusty, not really knowing what to do, slaps it as he runs by. And this is the first recording ever of a high five. Uh, and so Glenn is up next. Glenn also homers and rounds the bases. And so there's a second high five. He and Dusty do a second high five moments later after Glenn is finished rounding the bases. And the high five becomes a prominent, it grows from there. But the Dodgers really own it the next few seasons. The whole team does. So the manager of the Dodgers at this time was a lovely man named Tommy Lasorda. I know he's one of your favorites. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, just not good. The guy was an attention whore and just a useless human being. I'm sure people in LA love him to this day. Tommy Tommy had this routine where he would run to hug any player that hit a home run, and players assumed he only did it to get on TV. So Glenn started the practice of basically blocking Tommy at the other end of the dugout whenever a home run happened, so he couldn't get to the player who'd hit it as he's coming off the field. Just box him in, basically. Yeah, I'm 6'4". I outweigh you by 60 pounds. There's no way you can get past me. So, but also seems clear that Tommy's racist, and he also doesn't care for gay people either. I'd forgotten this bit. Tommy Lasorda has a son named Tommy Lasorda Jr., who looks nothing like his father.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
this part of the story. Yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
Tommy Jr. is very flamboyant and out there as individual wearing fur coats, sort of presumed to be gay. And he's described, if you Google pictures of Tommy Lasorda Jr., he's just very pretty. He has this kind of long blonde. He's like
Yeah.
he kind of looks like a woman. And there are some accounts that indicate that Junior may have had some sort of relationship with Glenn at some point. And then Tommy Junior dies at the age of 32. Basically of pneumonia, but
Mhm.
it's AIDS complications. His system is shot. And reporters ask Tommy about how do you feel about this? How do you feel about your son dying of AIDS? And Tommy wasn't gay and it wasn't AIDS. He died of pneumonia. Just a huge case of of denial and just being a dirtbag. And accounts vary about in terms of how Glenn was treated by the team. Davy Lopez, was very, very clear for decades that the team knew he was gay. All the players did. No one really gave a shit. But management was against him. He wasn't getting much playing time anyway, and so they trade him to his hometown team. They trade him. They trade him not to the Giants, but trade him to the A's. So at least he's going to be comfortable, and
Hmm.
he's now mostly out and comfortable in the Castro. But his manager for his time in Oakland is a man
Oh,
named
oh, no, 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 no.
Billy Martin,
Oh,
the other dirtbag. Dirtbag manager who I think in the 1980 season introduced Glenn by saying, "This is Glenn Burke, and he's a faggot."
all class, that Billy
Yeah.
Martin.
Billy Martin happily, died while drunk driving in 1989, I think. Yeah. Good
Single
dude.
car accident, right?
Single
It was
car
a
accident
single.
somewhere in Texas, I think even. Yeah,
Oh, was it?
scumbag.
Oh, I thought it was up in New York State, but yeah,
Oh, could be. I don't
it
know.
it stunned me one
Slime
time
ball.
when I was reading about him a while back, and it was like, God, he's been dead for almost 40 years.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah. So Glenn was only in the majors for 4 years. He retired because he wasn't getting much playing time, and he wasn't being treated very well. For a while anyway, he did manage to lead a quiet but decent enough life in Northern California in the Castro, where he was routinely spotted, seen giving high fives just to people on the street as they walk by because
hmm.
he's in the neighborhood. People know who he is. He competed in the gay games in 82 and 86 in softball and basketball. The Bay Area also had a gay softball league in which he competed for several years. And then he was, as a pedestrian, he was hit by a car in 1987 that crushed one foot and a leg.
Oh God.
And that basically did him in. Money became an issue. He turned to drugs. And toward the end of his life, he was mostly on the street and mostly on cocaine. He did contract AIDS. He died on May 30th, 1995, in Fairmount Hospital in San Leandro, California, at the incredibly young age of 42.
Ugh.
So, June, as we've said, is Pride Month. The Oakland A's actually had Glenn Burke Pride Night on June 8th of this year.
Oh,
Just
excellent.
just a couple weeks ago. Super interesting dude. There's a whole bunch out there about him, including a 30 for 30 documentary and a whole bunch of other articles. I wanted to do something that was
That's very cool.
something for Pride Month. He got some decent support maybe early on from a few friends. Nowhere near the level of support he deserved. And again, even more evidence, proof if proof were needed, that Tommy Lasorda and Billy Martin are both absolute scum, and they always were. So, anyway, Glenn Burke, and because it's Pride Month, also if you get a chance, do a little bit of googling. I may still do a story on this on a man named Alan Turing, who I'm sure you've heard of before.
Oh yes. Hmm.
There's been a movie about him with Benedict Cumberbatch. There's been so much on him. I think I will probably skip doing a story on Turing. But breathtakingly smart man, also treated horribly,
Hmm.
chemically castrated, then committed suicide, but really, really helped win World War II. And June 22nd was his birthday. So
Oh.
Do some googling on Alan Turing and Glenn Burke, both super cool people who were gay and who didn't get treated the way they should have been.
And the Turing test was whenever required texts when we were in college. We had to read the Turing Man, I think was the title of it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, about the Turing test. Yeah, that's what a great story, Brian. Glenn Burke. And he didn't win a World Series because those Dodgers ran up against the 77-78 Yankees.
Yankees, yeah.
So they were in LA, and I can't remember. Did they go back to back and lose to him back to back? I can't remember. I was just a wee lad at the time, but he at least
They
got a
they may
league
have actually.
championships. He at least got one league
Uh,
championship out of that. That's awesome.
yep.
That is fantastic.
So there you have it.
Great baseball story, great pride story. That's great. Um, Still don't like the Dodgers, but
Yeah, still hate those fuckers.
Good on them. Good on them. Do you have a curse word of the week for us, Brian?
I do. The curse word comes to us from the land of curse words. It is Germany.
All right.
This one is a mouthful. Deutsche Zusammengesetztes Fortsetzungsgefühl. That is the German word that is the longing or hope that there is some crazy German compound noun that describes the terrible situation you currently find yourself in. It's sort of like it's a meta noun. It's the noun for when I for wishing I had a noun, a German noun,
The only
like
word I got out of that was Deutsch.
Schaden.
So,
Yeah, Deutsche Zusammengesetztes Fortsetzungsgefühl. There you have it.
so it's the word that is unattainable, but it
Right,
describes the
right,
situation you're
right.
in.
It's German longing, basically. Right.
That's a very very philosophical word as well. That's the word you cannot name. That's good. I like that. Can you say it one more time for us?
I'll try.
Okay.
Deutsche Zusammengesetzt Fortsetzungsgefühl.
All right. I will use it tomorrow. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
My turn for my story for episode 153. Brian, can you name a few reality TV shows for me? I know you're
Oh,
a big fan.
um, back in the day, like Fear Factor, Who's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, Survivor.
Hmm. Okay. There's some debate over what the first American reality TV show was. Do you want to take a stab at what it was?
I'm thinking was it Survivor or one of the Survivors?
Well, some might argue that the distinction goes to Candid Camera,
Oh,
which dates back to, believe it or not, 1948 on television.
Alan
That
Funt.
that program emerged from the radio show The Candid Microphone, which I did not know until I did this story. Candid Camera ended in 1992. It's a pretty amazing run, 48 to 92. The Real World is another one that might come to mind
Hmm.
immediately. That would also be a good guess, especially in what we've come to term in what we've come to expect from the genre. But I may very well go with An American Family. Have you ever heard of this reality show?
No.
It aired on PBS in 1973.
Okay.
The series was a result of editing some 300 hours of footage shot between May 30th of 1971 and New Year's Day 1972 into a dozen hour-long episodes. 24 families were interviewed for producer Craig Gilbert's project. Gilbert made an important distinction that the Loud family, who he chose, a family named Loud, was not the American family, but an American family, which is what gave the series its title. What a difference an article can make. The Loud family of Santa Barbara, California was chosen. Bill and Pat Loud were married in 1950 and started having children almost immediately. At the time of the series, the kids ranged from ages 14 to 20. The three boys arrived first. Allenson, which is a name I'd never heard,
Oh.
Allenson, born in 1951, Kevin in 1953, Grant in 1954. Then the two girls brought up the rear, Delilah in 1955 and Michelle in 1957. So that's quite a bunch of stair steps all there in a row. The premiere episode begins with an interesting storytelling device, which was certainly bold for 1973. Episode 1 opens on December 31st, 1971, the second to last day of filming. So they
Hmm.
started at the end.
Hmm.
Pat and some of the kids are preparing for a New Year's Eve party being held for the children and their friends. Patriarch Bill is nowhere to be found. It's revealed that the eldest son, Allenson, who goes by the name Lance, has been living in New York City for 9 months, which means that he's been there since before filming began. Bill and Pat talk over the phone, where it's revealed that Bill has left the family and lives in an apartment. He's also received a very nice letter from Lance, which he says he will mail on to Pat and the kids. So, for the first third of this program, we see scenes of Pat and the kids celebrating New Year's, interspersed with clips of Bill as he hobnobs at various parties elsewhere. The story then fades to a typical morning months before as Pat prepares breakfast for the family and the kids go over what they can expect from their last days of school before the summer break. Okay, so it goes back in time 7 months. Boom. So we're back in late May.
Right.
It really is a brilliant move leaping forward to the end. We know that a lot is going to happen to the Loud family in a very short amount of time, and we still haven't met the eldest son, Lance. Producer Craig Gilbert said that this glimpse into the future for the family was his sense of, quote, playing fair with the audience, showing them that all would not remain stable over the 12 episodes. Now, I'm not going to do an episode by episode breakdown, but I wanted to give a sense of the program's style and content. It's shot on 16 millimeter film, and the family discussions sound familiar. There's a discussion of school assignments, meal planning, and the like. And there's overlapping conversations, sounding not unlike a Robert Altman film,
Hmm.
right? Like the
Okay.
scenes in the MASH movie where you can hear three or four conversations going on at once, or, real life where you're at a social gathering and there's a bunch of people talking all at once. The Louds live in a large house on a spacious plot of land. They have a pool, lots of cars, and the family's clothes are current and fashionable for 1973. Michelle has a horse, and the boys have guitars, drums, amps, and speakers set up in the garage. In the words of Craig Gilbert, they are, quote, neither average nor typical. They are, in my opinion, wealthy, particularly for 1973. I would say, at the very least, upper middle class, if
Right.
not
Sure. Right.
upper class. Speaking of producer Craig Gilbert, he was interviewed in 2011 by then current WNET. That was the radio station, there was the TV station that aired this out of New York. WNET 13. He was interviewed by the vice president of programming, Steven Seagal. It's hard to say his name because you see it and you say Steven Seagal. Steven Segaller. Segaller is his last name. Segaller. Segaller. I was distracted by his appearance, not only by his name, but his appearance. He's an excellent interviewer, but he physically resembles U.S. Secretary of Energy, Texas Governor Rick Perry. Perry currently serves as utility infielder in the game of asshole, in my opinion. Once you get past that, though, the name and the look, there's great stuff to be found. Gilbert reveals that his choice of the Loud family came after almost giving up. No family seemed just right, but then came across the Louds. They were attractive, they were interesting, plus there were five kids, which made for a good sized cast. Gilbert also admits that his own marriage was unraveling at the time and saw the same with Bill and Pat because Bill was very open about having extramarital affairs when he first met Craig Gilbert. So he kind of thought, okay, here's
So cameras will help. Like,
there's gonna be something going on.
right.
Speaking of cameras, Bryan, the arrangement for filming the family worked like this: the two-person crew would film from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. each day. Any delicate matters that the family did not want filmed should be discussed before or after that time slot. Okay, so they're trying to play fair with the family.
Right.
The crew would not open any doors. If a family member walked off and closed the door behind them, they would not open that door. And any particularly delicate situations that arose would not be filmed. And there's only one where Pat Loud made an argument that no, I don't want this filmed, and that was when she told her kids of her impending separation from their father. That was not filmed. Other than that, everything else is fair game.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
There's other interviews with crews with crew from the film, a cameraman, a sound engineer, various VPs of programming, and even an editor's apprentice named Jessie Maple, who would herself go into a career in filmmaking and become the first African American woman in the Camera Persons Union,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. All these crew members concur that American Family was very much a project of the 1970s, while at the same time reflecting changing mores and social concerns. Most pointed out that the modern reality TV that we know of when we think of Survivor and Real
Right.
World has very little to do with what Craig Gilbert and his crew were attempting to create in 1971 and 1972. An American Family has more in common with cinema verite than, say, Big Brother. There's no script, no need to generate conflict. It all flows naturally from the family dynamic. One could argue that the true cinema verite experience would require us to view all 300 hours of footage. I mean, if you're really being real about it.
Right.
But fortunately, there's editors to step in and do that for us. I highly recommend that if you have any interest, passing or otherwise, in 1970s media or reality TV, that you check out the series. I might end up watching the whole thing at some point. It's readily available on PBS and at Internet Archive. Now, we all know that there's in a sitcom, there's a star that's the breakout star, right? I mean,
Right.
Mary Tyler Moore gave us Phyllis and Rhoda and these characters that go on in spinoffs, more or less. If only one Loud family member could become the breakout star of the program, it would have to be the eldest son, Lance. As the series begins, Lance has lived in New York City for 2 months, having moved there in promise of a writing job that hasn't quite materialized. His mother visits him there in episode 2. Lance has a strained relationship with his father and seems to be closest to his sister, Delilah, in the family. There's no doubt that two particular events are best remembered from an American family's run in early 1973. The first is the dissolution of Bill and Pat's marriage. The second is Lance's coming out as gay to his family. He is among the first, if not the first, openly gay person on American television.
Hmm.
You ever heard the name?
No.
Lance Loud? And that was just the start for Lance Loud. In 1973, the Loud parents were guests on the Dick Cavett Show. I'm really beginning to understand that the cultural nexus of American society from the late 60s to the mid 70s was the Dick Cavett Show. It should be noted that the Louds' opinions of their portrayal shifted over the broadcast of the miniseries. At first, they were enthusiastic, but soured a little bit as time went on. They felt the negative aspects of their lives were the primary subject. A prerequisite for Pat and Bill's appearance on the concurrent appearance was a concurrent appearance by Lance, his longtime friend Kristen Hoffman, and three of the other Loud kids. They were there as a musical act, fittingly called Loud. Cavett then interviews all five Loud kids separately from their parents, and the kids expressed more than once that self consciousness was definitely a part of the equation, that the desire to say something witty or intelligent when the cameras were on was much more prevalent than without the cameras. In the words of Delilah, she, quote, felt pressed for something to say. And this is kind of one of the cameramen notices this, that it's, he calls it the Eisenberg principle of storytelling, right? That in the very fact that you're observing it is going to cause changes in how people behave. Lance, of course, gets the most time in a separate interview. On more than one occasion, Cavett admits that he can't tell if Lance is being serious or not, and I'm not sure that Lance does either. I knew what I was going to come off as, says Lance, a fat-assed opportunist. But in reality, he says, I'm decidedly stupid, but they cut out a lot of the friction and energy. The only critique that hurt, says Lance, was the New York Times assessment of him that, quote, some people enjoy swimming next to an electric eel. Perhaps the best observation offered by Lance in regards to his family, parents included, was a very simple one. We are all growing up. Lance Loud and Kristen Hoffman would return to New York to pursue a musical career, taking along drummer J.D. Dougherty. Lance was the vocalist, Kristen played keyboards. The trio picked up a couple of new members, Rob Dupre on guitar and Aaron Keeley on bass. By 1975, they had a new name. They were the Mumps.
Hmm. Never heard of them.
They also had a new gig at a little place called CBGB in New York City.
Wow. Okay.
The Mumps played the same stage with performers such as Blondie, the Ramones, Talking Heads, Television, and the Patti Smith Group. Here's one for you, Brian. What does CBGB stand for?
I don't know.
It stands for Country, Bluegrass, and Blues.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, Hilly Crystal was big into those kinds of music, and these guys I don't think are country, bluegrass, or the blues, but that's what CBGB became, right? It became the center of kind of the punk new wave universe.
Right.
In addition to the well-attended CBGB shows, the Mumps were also popular at Max's Kansas City, and which is also in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Those towns also had a sizable Mumps following. The group never did get signed on with a major label, perhaps owing to executives being unwilling to promote and support a band led by two openly gay men. The Mumps split up in 1979, with Hoffman going on to work with such artists as Lydia Lunch, Klaus Nomi, and Rufus Wainwright. Lance Loud finally got that writing job, working for The Advocate, Cream, and other publications. There was a 10-year retrospective in 1983, and eventually a 13th hour of An American Family, publicized as the final episode. It aired in 2003 as Lance Loud, A Death in the Family. Here it's revealed that Lance Loud nursed a crystal meth addiction for 20 years. He went into hospice in the early 2000s owing to an HIV and hepatitis comorbidity. Shortly before his death, Lance made a wish that his parents would get back together. And his parents actually did that.
Wow.
Lance Loud died December 22nd, 2001, at the age of 50. The remaining Loud family members stayed close, most of them literally, except for Kevin, who lived out of state. Bill Loud died in 2018. Pat died in 2021. The extent to which an American family generated what we may now call reality TV may still be up for debate, but as a cultural artifact, it may be the best example of creators working outside the norm of television. Margaret Mead, anthropologist, in a roundtable discussion with academics, compared the program to the advent of the novel, something new in the human experience. Richard Gilman, then professor of drama at Yale, commented that the viewing audience might actually dislike the Louds, seeing them as a failure as a family. Another brutal assessment with the Louds were, quote, affluent zombies and boors. But something did resonate with the American public in 1973. An American Family drew 10 million viewers a week.
Damn,
Mhm.
that's incredible.
That's according to Statista.com. Now, remember the difference between ratings and shares, right? There were 69
Vaguely.
million there were 69 million televisions in the United States. With 10 million viewers, that gives the program a 6.9 rating. That's not too bad for a PBS show. The share would be even greater, but I don't have an exact number because the share is how many TVs that are actually turned on, not just sitting there, but turned on to your program. So the
Right.
share could very well be, I couldn't get that information. I don't have the number of the exact TVs in use for each episode of An American Family. Um, so that's the story of Lance Loud and the Loud family, perhaps the first openly gay person on American television. Sources for this story were An American Family. I did watch episodes 1 and 2, the January 11th and 18th episodes from 1979, WNET 13 of New York, Craig Gilbert, the producer. Mark Deming's Mumps biography on the ever valuable allmusic.com. Craig Gilbert. Oh, sorry, I already mentioned that. The Mumps LP, and this is the current collection. All of their material has been collected in one form or another, so you can get it all in one place. The current LP is called, it's got a great title, Rock and Roll This, Rock and Roll That. Best case scenario, you've got mumps. Steven Segaler, the interview of Vice President of Programming for WNET interviews in 2011. He interviewed Craig Gilbert, the producer, Alex Raymond and Susan Raymond, who were the camera and sound folks, Paul Hanser, who was one of the programming guys. No, I'm sorry, he was one of the editors. Jesse Maple, who's the aforementioned editor's apprentice, and then Bill Coben and Robert Kutlowitz, who were involved with programming at the time. The Dick Cavett Show, Statista.com, Wikipedia, and the Mumps liner notes to Rock and Roll This, Rock and Roll That. Best case scenario, you've got the Mumps, which is also the album I listened to while writing this story.
Nice.
Felt like an appropriate way to go out of on our last
Yeah.
episode of Pride Month.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Super interesting. Was taken back to the episode you did way back when of the 12 boys locked in the house together.
oh yeah,
I forget what that was called. Um,
I'd have to look it up.
yeah. Yeah. But reality TV. I mean, back then, I don't know. I mean, inviting cameras in, not smart. Friend of the pod, Byron actually worked on Road Rules
I don't know.
back at
Is that an MTV show?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it was, yes, it was like the second MTV, um, reality TV show, and uh, I I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here. As I recall, his complaining at the time was that, they would shoot all this stuff, and then there would be, I mean, it would be edited in a way to make this person look bad, this person look good. They would,
Mhm.
they would massage the story in order to create drama that hadn't really happened. I was like, oh, God, okay. So, ethically, he was not a huge fan of the experience. I don't think.
Well, having watched this, just in this short bit, I mean, you see these people. I mean, uh, it strikes me as, yeah, again, you have editors picking out what scenes are there.
Right.
Kind of gets to the whole thing about what is news. Well, it's what the news editor feels like is news for the day. Once you make that choice, you're still making a choice, even if you're supposedly
Right. Right. Unbiased.
subjective
Right.
and unbiased. It is a remarkable piece of filmmaking, and you do get a chance to really kind of see these kids in the wild in the early 1970s, and it's just you know, it's a pretty neat little time capsule too,
Right.
um, from that era. Anyway, so that's my story, Lance Loud and the Loud Family from An
Very
American
cool.
Family.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. That was a
Another
nice
one.
confluence of story choices there with the two
Yep.
of us.
Yeah. Happy
Which
Happy
occasion,
Pride Month. Wrapping up the
which
month here. Yeah.
absolutely, um, uh, best month to everyone out there who's celebrating, has celebrated, is still celebrating. We love you guys, and of course, we support the community, the Pride community here at Dream Idiots.
And thanks for listening to all of our stuff. We do appreciate it. You can check out dreamidiots.com. We have a bunch of merch on there these days. All of the back catalog is there on dreamidiots.com. You can give us a review, shoot us 5 stars on whichever platform you're on. That would be greatly appreciated. And we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Drop us a line at Dream Idiots Podcast at Gmail if you'd like, just to say hey. That'd be great too. And thanks for listening.
Yes, indeed. And I do promise that I will get to that Chicago restaurant story next time. I wanted to get Lance in for Pride Month, so I
Okay.
shifted my schedule around. So we'll be going to Chicago next week and eating pizza.
Woohoo.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye. Be good to each